start with a little striptease?
Don't leave that in there.
Well, you were the one who was going to do it.
Are you ready, Noelle?
Sure, I'm sweating.
I'm Billy, and let's get into this. So why did we start this channel?
Because there's nothing else for us to do on YouTube. But we like to read.
Yeah, we like to read.
We also like to buy books, which I am starting to think is a second hobby.
Yeah, I think that's a problem with everyone on BookTube, I think. I've been taking books out, we've been both taking books out from the library, but then I find a book that I really, really like, and then I buy it anyway.
But we're going to be better about that. We're not going to buy as many books. I just did my tax return, so I have to buy less books. But it's very obnoxious to own every book you read, and you don't need to.
We also want to make a channel together.
Yeah,
so,
we do.
We want to be on YouTube. We want to talk about books. We've gotten both back into reading pretty heavily. In our first video, we talked about that a bit, but we got rid of pretty much all of our streaming stuff. And instead of scrolling infinitely through Netflix at night looking for something to watch, we've just been reading, and we're getting through books. So we wanted to make a YouTube channel talking about that stuff.
I want to add also, I know this kind of is another one of the questions, but I would add to that BookTube, from my own searching through BookTube right now, I don't see a lot of people talking about the kinds of books that I like, and I know I can't be the only person that likes the books I like. So I want to start a little community. That sounds like cult leader talk, but I want to find the other people reading the books that I like. So if you're out there, hello.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, which is fine if they're reading new releases that like the algorithm wants to hear about. That's fine, but I'm not going to like read a book just because everyone else is reading it. I'm reading right now Gene Wolfe, and I feel like there's not a lot of YouTubers talking about him at all, and I really want to talk about him. And she doesn't like fantasy, so I can't talk about him to her, so I want to talk about him with you.
And I also don't like romance, and everybody on the internet seems to be talking about fantasy and romance.
Yeah, fantasy? Is that what they're calling it?
I think it's romantasy. No.
I don't know.
No, I'm joking.
I don't care. You're not going to see me reading it.
Listen to me. Two people falling in love is not a plot. So
it can be in a book, and that's fine.
Yes.
It should be, usually.
Well, it doesn't need to be.
It doesn't need to be.
It depends on the book.
Right.
But that's not a plot, so I'm not reading that.
There you have it.
And so for that reason, I'm out. Well, we haven't had any media training. So we're probably a little bit sloppier than the other people on the internet.
Well, I'm going to say I don't know about any channel, I'm sure there are some, but not that have come across my eyes, that are two people sharing the channel, talking about the books. We're not going to be in every video together if I read a book and I want to talk about it, but we are going to read some books together and then talk about it, or just talk about things in the book industry, or maybe BookTube, I don't know.
I will also say, and this is not a dig at anybody, but I was talking about this earlier with Billy, and I'll say it for you guys too. We're both business owners, and we're both very happy with our jobs, so as much as we would love for this channel to get monetized one day, we're not trying to make it a full-time gig.
Right.
And so because of that, we don't really have the pressure of needing to talk about new releases or needing to talk about popular books, because we want to keep our jobs. So if we put out a video and it tanks, it's okay.
Yeah.
We can talk about something unpopular every now and then, because we know that this is probably never going to be how we put food on the table.
Yeah, and also not keeping a schedule of having to post because we need to make video money. You know,
We're also, we do not read 130 books a year.
Yeah.
And we don't read a book in a day. I can't read at that speed. Even if I had the whole day free, I'm not going to read a book in a day because I'm a slow reader.
I'm very, very slow. I'm getting better now that we've been reading more the last 6 months to a year. I think part of it is that I get distracted less with needing to reach for my phone or like scroll through YouTube for something else to watch. I can kind of sometimes it takes me a little while to get into the groove, but I can put my phone aside and just sit there and read for a couple hours straight, you know?
But in terms of, I guess, what we can bring that's unique to BookTube. I want to really branch out with the types of videos we make. I want everything to be related to books and reading, but like we might do a video about, we just started trying out Storygraph. We might talk about that experience. We might talk about bookshop experiences. I don't know. Finding books on eBay. I really want to make sure that when you watch our channel and you watch our videos, they don't feel like every video is the same.
Right.
I think that's what has happened to a lot of YouTube content because these people are doing it for a living and they need to stick to a formula.
Especially if something works for them.
Yeah, and
just
that's fine.
Pump out the same video.
I want to be more open to different possibilities than that. And kind of in that same vein, I don't know what our upload schedule is going to look like. I want to be consistent. I don't want to disappear for months at a time.
No.
But, you know, because I don't read a book every day, I might not do a book review every week because I might be in the same book for 2 months. So...
yeah. And I think it's cool. I think it's cool to have both of us too, because if you, I mean, maybe you will hate everything that I read, but maybe, you know, you like fantasy and that's all you read and that's what I'm mostly going to talk about. But then you see what Noelle's reading when she posts a video and it's something you're interested in. You know, you have a larger perspective. Yeah. Just more books to like kind of hear about from one channel.
Yeah. People watching it. And that sounds so obvious.
Yeah, no.
But this is not my first time on YouTube. I've uploaded videos that nobody knows about. I want to see people watch our videos, and I want to see people engage with us, and I want to see your comments, even if they're mean. But I hope they're more productive than mean. So I want to have conversations with people. I want to get book recommendations.
Yeah.
I want to discuss books with people, you know. I want to maybe debate books with people, and just have a nerdy little community.
Yeah, I just want an outlet to like speak about my books, whether it's with Noelle or just with you guys. I mean, I like manga too, and I would like to talk about that. We'll see how that goes on here. I'm not going to make that like a priority, but if I read something and I want to talk about it or make a video, I'm going to do it. So yeah. I think that's a book. I feel like people... See, that's the one thing. People on YouTube, they sometimes hold things back because that's not going to be good for their channel.
Yeah,
so if I want to make a video, maybe it doesn't do well, so I don't make more, but I have a couple ideas, so I might do them.
Yeah. It's going to be as much of a hobby for us as anything else. I would say more a hobby than a business, especially right now, because we're not making a dime.
We don't even know how many views this is going to get.
Probably 10.
Which doesn't even matter, because we're having fun.
Yeah, we are having fun. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, so
for us. I hope it's fun for you, too.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. So you have fun watching someone and maybe learning some new books. Just to check out. If that's all you get, I think that's what a lot of people just use YouTube for, right?
That's something I want to talk about too really quickly because, you know, like I said, a lot of people, on BookTube, a lot of people talk about new releases, so it's like, oh, for God's sake, I know all the names of the new releases.
Right, because everyone's talking about them.
But there's so many books that are not new that, like, I'll stumble across on the internet and I'll go like, oh my God, that sounds so good. And then sometimes I get this crazy pressure, like it's not at the library, and I'm like, what if it goes out of print? I need to buy it right now. And that is where I spend too much money on Amazon. But, like, there are a lot of books that are not new that no one's talking about, and I feel like if more people knew about this, like, everyone would be reading it because it sounds so interesting.
Yeah, that's honestly how I found the book that I'm finishing up, The Book of the New Sun by Gene Wolfe. I finished the game Demon Souls on PS5, and I wanted something similar to that story, and I searched through like forums and Reddit threads and didn't really find anything until I found a couple people saying like, check this book out, it gives you this similar type of feeling. And at first I didn't find that at all, but now I get it that I'm almost done. And it's like, there's, like I keep saying, no one's talking about that. I just want a chance to talk about the books that no one is talking about, because I think there's going to be a lot of recommendations, or maybe it's a book that you've read and you feel the same way. No one's ever talked about it, and this is my favorite book, or I read this 10 years ago, maybe I should reread it. Have a conversation, listen to me or us talk about it, and then we'll talk in the comments.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Me too. I'll start with that. I see you thinking. This is something that I felt when I first started watching anime, is that it's a medium for stories and situations that the rest of media doesn't give you. Up until more recently, I think fantasy with maybe Game of Thrones and maybe The Wheel of Time, although that's not a great show. But then like Harry Potter movies got fantasy and sci-fi a little bit bigger. But books are just ways to read stories and concepts that like the general, movie watching public aren't getting. That's what I always felt about, especially with fantasy and sci-fi. There are things that need huge budgets to be able to show, lots of CGI and all this stuff, and you can get it just by reading right in your head.
Yeah. I would add, I just enjoy reading. I think that some people just do enjoy reading and some people don't. I think that there's people, I feel like I've heard people talk about like feeling bad that they don't read. If you don't like reading, there's so many other things you could be doing with your time than trying to force yourself to like something you don't like.
I would say though that maybe you're not reading books that are for you.
Yeah, maybe not. But also, if you hate the thought of sitting there with a book, then go make a painting or something.
Right,
I don't know. There's other things you could do.
Yeah, I love being able to like, you get to that point when you're reading through a chapter and like it's playing out like a movie in your head. That's what I love about reading, where you're flipping through pages and like you're seeing the characters and the situation and it's in your head and you can picture it. And you've pictured what all of the characters look like. And, if there's like a movie or TV version, maybe you have those actors or actresses in your head. But
oh yeah,
that's a fun thing. I can't get rid of like Aragorn as Viggo Mortensen, for example, or Frodo as what the hell is his name? Elijah Wood.
Okay, well that's different. I thought you meant... So I just recently listened to the audiobook of Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine, and the whole time, the Raymond character, I kept picturing like a younger Zach Galifianakis.
Okay.
I don't know why, but that's who would play him in my head, which it wouldn't work now because he's too old.
That's interesting. That wasn't the way I was thinking.
I thought that's what you meant.
Probably a good video series to do.
But you can't force it.
No.
You can't retroactively go, well, who would play Eleanor? It's either you saw it while you were reading the book or you don't, I think. Obviously, that's not how the world works because they cast people all the time to do adaptations. What was the question? Why do I like reading? I really I just enjoy it. I like finding new books and then going like, oh my god, I need to know what that's about, and then getting the satisfaction of being able to say I finished a book, more if I enjoyed it than, if I didn't. And I really like learning new words. And I write for work, so I've definitely noticed that it's easier for me to write. Like, I have an easier time banging out paragraphs if I've been reading versus if I haven't been. So it does help with my job, but I just think it's really cozy. I'm an indoorsy, cozy, lazy person, and I love nothing more than when it's raining outside and I'm cozy on the couch with a book and maybe like a glass of wine or something, or tea. I don't know. It feels productive, and yet it's still self-centered.
Like an excuse to just sit there and do nothing all Sunday and read.
Yeah.
It's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, if you're watching this, you like reading too.
You don't even like series, so I guess we could talk. You could talk about what book.
As a child, I liked series. I did mention this in the first video. I actually don't really know if you would consider Ramona a series. I think you would, because there's several books about Ramona. I fucking loved those books as a kid. I loved the Boxcar Children, and I like to think I liked the Harry Potter books, but when you really think about it, I guess I didn't, because I only read the first one and part of the second one. I watched the movies.
Yeah,
I think that they came out with the movies much faster than I was going to get through the books, so I think that was part of it.
They come out with one movie a year.
I know, and those books were really thick. Those are the series I read as a kid, I guess. And if you could consider Junie B. Jones a series. But like as I got older, past little children's books, I didn't read series anymore.
For me, it was definitely The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. The Hobbit I read literally in one night or one day, one Saturday. The Lord of the Rings took me a bit more. I think The Fellowship was like a 2 or 3 day thing. I love those. I read them once. I tried to read The Hobbit a few years ago. I read it once in college. It wasn't the same, but I also wasn't into books again at that point, which is a little weird. Like I do now. One of the reasons why I started reading it is I want to reread The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, see what I've missed over the years, because since then I've watched the movies over and over again. R.A. Salvatore, I think it's Salvatore, not Salvatore. I've said it in my head Salvatore for like 20 plus years.
Well, does it end with an E or an I?
An E.
I would have thought it's Salvatore.
R.A. Salvatore, Robert Salvatore. I don't know. But his The Legend of Drizzt books, that was the big series because I've read 15 of those when I was in middle school and even high school. And a few years back, I even actually, I've reread the I think it's The Legacy of the Drow, Exile, Sojourn, and Homeland. But I also listened to them on audiobook while, like, just hanging out or working out, like listening at night or working out. I listen to those because I really like them. I might consider rereading those, but we'll see. Those were the two series I would say that really got me into reading. I've always considered myself a fantasy fan since then.
Oh, I forgot to mention, as an adult, some of the books that got me back into reading. I know I mentioned, I don't know if it was this video or the other one, I mentioned Running with Scissors, but also, this is like such garbage. It's like junk food covered in garbage. But I liked Chelsea Handler's memoirs, her first couple. Are You There, God? No, Are You There, Vodka? It's Me, Chelsea, and Chelsea, Chelsea, Bang, Bang. I read those in college, and because they're just like lighthearted garbage. It's like reading a blog.
That's kind of like, I also am forgetting if I said this in this video or not, but the Sookie Stackhouse novels I read one summer. I read 4 or 5 of them in one summer. That was when True Blood was really big on HBO. And I don't even know if they may have been meant for like girls. I don't remember much about them. I think they were kind of like smutty vampire stories, but a lot they're called the Southern Vampire Mysteries because they're supposed to be mysteries and murders going on. I think the show changed that a little bit, but they were easy reads, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's like you flip through the pages and it's fun and exciting. And I read 4 or 5 of them, and that one summer I never looked at them again, but they were enjoyable. That kind of helped me get back into books again. But like I've said, once again, I don't know if I said this in this video, but like in college and like high school, I didn't have a ton of time. So I would read during the summer when on vacation. That was kind of my thing. And I would maybe read 1, maybe 2 books in my free time. But it's hard when you're in college and you have all these classes and you're like working, part-time job and all this stuff.
And you're reading for your classes.
Yeah, you're reading novels or you're doing writing essays and all this stuff.
I'm not like, this sounds so bad. I don't have a favorite booktuber. I don't watch a lot of BookTube because, like I said, a lot of the videos I've seen on BookTube are not books that I'm interested in. So I guess that's a question. Why aren't you talking about the books I like?
We don't watch too many BookTubers. We tried some out here and there. For a few years, I've watched Daniel Green and Murphy Napier and a little bit of Philip Chase, but I haven't read all of his all of the books he's read, so I can't watch all of the videos. But I guess I would just ask them if the books they read, if they lean towards reading them for video purposes. Ooh. Like, are there books that you want to read, but you have to kind of hold off on because like you don't think anyone's gonna maybe watch your video about them? Like, is there like a series you want to reread,
I couldn't do that.
But you have like new releases or you planned out a bunch of videos already, so you have to read these books?
Well, I don't read at the rate of these other people, that's for sure. I think a combination of, I'm not the fastest reader in the world, and I do sometimes read like a couple books at the same time. Like, I've started this new thing where I like to listen to an audiobook at night in bed. So I am pretty much always reading something, plus I have an audiobook that I'm listening to. And then sometimes I might read 2 books at a time. If there's a nonfiction book that is a little bit dry, but I want to know the information that it has, I will read that while I'm also reading a more entertaining book. And then now I have my audiobook in bed. So I might be doing 3 books at a time. So hopefully that will help me get through enough stuff to put out content. But like I said, I don't want to be on like a hamster wheel where I'm speed reading books and pumping out content and not enjoying it. But I think that's probably, I think the biggest challenges are a combination of keeping up with like a consistent schedule. And because I've done YouTube before, I know that it's very challenging when you spend time making a video and nobody sees it. That makes me not feel like I should take the time to make a video. So if the algorithm really hates us, then we might struggle to continue putting out content. But I really hope that doesn't happen because we both want to do this.
Yeah,
so.
do.
I think those are the biggest challenges that I can identify right now. But, it might get challenging as we go, and maybe there will be problems or something. So who knows?
Yeah, I prefer not to read multiple books at once because I feel like when I'm done with it, I'm going to forget about some of the points or some of the story beats. But that being said, I still kind of do that sometimes. The Book of the New Sun is it's a very slow read, and I actually needed a little break from it. And I went back to one of the nonfiction books, the books on the Ravens book, I think, or the Crows. There's a book I'm reading about crows and how smart they are. And I kind of took a week or two off from the Book of the New Sun and read that, and I'll go back to that after. But it's just, I know that, especially with series, it's tough. Because if you take too long of a break and like the whole story, like the Book of the New Sun or like the Lord of the Rings, it's multiple books, but it's really one big book. So you don't want to take too long of a break because you'll forget story beats because there'll be callbacks or they'll be like, oh, this was hinted at in chapter 5, but I'm on chapter 32, and if I wait 6 months to go back to the book, I'm going to forget the whole thing. And I have to start over, and I don't want to do that. So, yeah, just keeping up with books, I guess, is one of the things I might struggle with. I don't know. I don't ever want to just, like, read something just to put a video out.
No, I don't want to do that either.
But there are short books that I want to read. Before I started the Book of the New Sun, I read 3 really short books that were, like, between 150 and 200 pages, and I loved them. I read them in a couple nights each because they were really easy reads, and for the most part, I enjoyed them all, and... yeah, I'm okay with finding some short books to read, but I'm not going to just pick books to get through to make a video on. I think we kind of answered that already, did we?
Yeah. I mean, we talked about that, I think, in the first video.
So I started reading, I don't know, when I was a little kid, I remember reading some Goosebump books. And then it wasn't really that I started reading for pleasure too much till I was closer to middle school age, I guess. My mom would take me to the library. I would read the Doom books based on the video games. I loved space, so I would read books about, like, astronomy and planets, and I think I even took out a Stephen Hawking book once, I think A Brief History of Time, and that was way over my head, probably at like 11 or 12. And then I got into fantasy really in middle school with The Hobbit.
I'm like the opposite. I got into reading for pleasure like as soon as I learned how to read. But when I got to middle school, that's when I stopped enjoying reading because I didn't like the way that it was forced on us through school. And it just took the fun out of reading. When teachers would, point to a scene in a book and say, this refrigerator symbolizes global warming because blah, blah, blah. And I'd be sitting there going, well, how do you know? When did the author say that? Why should we all interpret it that way? And I just was so turned off, which, it's unfortunate, but I'm glad that I got back into reading because I loved it when I was a little kid and I love it again now. And there's a lot of really good writing out there and I want to read it.
I think that now that you said that, thinking about challenges for me is I'm not the best at picking out symbolism in books. And I know that's like a big, like really analyzing books. And sometimes I just read it to enjoy it. But like there are certain times where like I know I want to reread the Book of the New Sun to get more out of it. You can very easily look up, like Google, like what did I miss or symbolism in the book, and that I feel like ruins it a bit. You can find like Reddit threads where people are really dissecting things.
Well, what makes them experts?
No, they're not experts. It's just their opinions. But I don't know. I don't want to spoil myself. That's a problem. You can't look up anything about books because you will get spoiled immediately.
This question is funny to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to read on the train, but I don't take the train anymore. So, I mean, I read, like, I don't know how specific, like, on the couch is the answer. That's weird. But I read in the living room on the couch. Sometimes I read in bed, and I listen to audiobooks in bed. I actually started listening to audiobooks because I told myself I would do it on the treadmill, and I stuck with the listening to audiobooks habit, and I did not stick with the treadmill habit. So those are my answers. One other thing I'll say, I know some people like to drive with audiobooks, and I think that that's like an interesting, cool little concept. I don't think I can pay that close of attention to what I'm listening to while I'm driving, so that's never going to work for me.
Yeah, I think for me, audiobooks be a little too much. Podcasts are fine. I've done podcasts while driving for years. I also read, we both work from home, so it's mostly at home on the couch in bed. I like to read outside when it's nice out though.
I do.
In the spring,
I do like
summer
that.
when it's not too hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I also read physical and ebooks on Kindle. I honestly prefer the Kindle because it's easy to read in bed at night. Although I like the feel of the book better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the thing is...
I like both, but the books just take up too much space.
The books take up space, but I don't like that at any point publishers and or Amazon could decide that you don't have the rights anymore to the Kindle book, or that maybe they want to change the content. Yeah. So I don't really buy Kindle books very much anymore. I'll buy them occasionally if the paperback is like $50 and the Kindle book is $4, then I'll buy the Kindle book, if the library doesn't have it. But I mostly use my Kindle now to take out Kindle books from the library and then put it in airplane mode so I can read it well past the due date. I love the experience of reading on the Kindle. I love tapping to find definitions. I just don't like the uncertainty of owning Kindle content anymore. I used to buy a lot of Kindle books. I used to follow this like flash sale email newsletter where books were like 99 cents every day and I would buy way too many of them. So I own a lot of Kindle books, but I will not be buying that many more because I've lost my confidence in this digital media world. I know that like Sony, I think, started like there was some video game incident, I think, where people bought video games and then were told that they lost their licenses and the content is no longer available to them, and that's so messed up. I don't want to spend money on books if that can happen to me. So
yeah, that happened recently. I think maybe you're thinking of a video game thing, but it also happened recently with Sony. I think in Crunchyroll and Funimation anime, people got digital versions of their anime, and then Crunchyroll bought out Funimation, and they said, no, these are going away. You don't own them anymore.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope. I don't like it. I mean, I definitely am not like a person that only reads 1,000-page long books, because I feel like there's people out there that like every book they read is like this thick. I'm not one of those people. I like memoirs. I like interesting fiction, which is like, what does that mean? I like realistic fiction, but I also like fiction that has like a message, things that are like commentary. Things like George Orwell. I say that, but like I've only read 1984, so I don't know how much I get to talk about him. But like things like that. I like that type of fiction. I want to read more of that. But what I wanted to mention that I haven't mentioned yet is that Billy and I listened to David Sedaris. We've listened to a few of his books now, but when we first started, I had never had any interest in essays. I thought that's for people who were too lazy to read a whole book. And they were so enjoyable, and we just binge listened to him, and I like listening because he's an engaging storyteller, but he
reads them too.
I also like as I'm listening, I'm thinking wow, so he goes about his day and has a notebook and takes note of the most mundane details, but it's interesting. I don't know. I enjoy that, and it's like I've been exposed to a whole new style of writing. So I'm more interested now in reading essays. I have not read essays from anyone else yet, but I'm looking for more to try out. And short stories. I've never really gotten into short stories before, but now I'm more open to it. I also have the Barnes and Noble collection of Grimm's fairy tales because I like the old school, I guess, original kind of fairy tales. I mean, no one knows the original version because they were shared verbally, but you know how they're kind of dark and depressing. I like that. I think it's important. In the past, I used to really kind of just read thriller after thriller and then get bored of thrillers and stop reading for a month. I think it's important to mix up what you're reading so that you can read every day and not feel tired of reading. So that's something I've learned more recently that I'm more aware of now. If I get tired of reading, science, books about, psychology, then it's okay, well, it doesn't mean I'm not going to stop reading. It means I'm going to take a break from psychology and read a funny memoir instead. So I don't know if that answered the question, but that's my answer.
I like to read a lot of fiction. I'm not limited to that. Fiction, fantasy, sci-fi, some classics. I want to read The Last of the Mohicans and a few classics, as long as they read okay. When you have to really when the writing, the English is so different than it is now, I struggle a little bit, but I don't know, there's just a lot of fiction out there. I want to reread some of the books I checked out in high school, like The Catcher in the Rye or Animal Farm. I remember liking those, but I don't remember anything about them. I'm probably going to reread Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, The Lord of the Rings. I'm really excited to read more Gene Wolfe and the Dresden Files. And then Cormac McCarthy. I want to, there's a lot. There's a lot of fiction and some nonfiction, like Noelle was saying. I am interested in checking out more essays and short stories. Memoirs could be good too. I have to find people that I'm interested in. In college, I was really into like MMA and watching the UFC. I read 3 books from UFC fighters, and 2 of them were also really funny and just stories about them growing up. So I want to find more books like that. Big, long novels. Series, I don't know, I'm really just whatever I find interesting. I also like manga, so I'm gonna try to read some more of that. I just recently read Death Note, and I liked that a lot, the first half at least, and I'm just gonna read whatever I find interesting, so give me recommendations. I think that's what's gonna be fun too, as we put more videos out talking about the books that we're covering, or maybe we do lists or whatever. I definitely want to see recommendations from anyone that's watching.
Yes.
And then we can talk about it.
Yeah. That's a big part of why we're doing this.
Yeah.
We want to talk about books with you.
So I think that's it for the, what is this called? Newbie Tag?
Something like that.
BookTuber Newbie Tag. So thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks for watching. And I hope you subscribe and come back.